Oh, this is gonna be crazy. That was great. Alright, hello everyone and welcome today to another episode of SpraynPray1000's Verdict. I am SpraynPray1000 and today, actually, we're doing a couple of things differently on the Verdict. Today, I'm not going to be doing it on my normal computer. I'm going to be doing it on my laptop, just for simplicity, since I'm going to be rendering over here and I don't have to move files back and forth. So if you hear the air conditioning, if you hear other stuff, just remember that this is not, a headset anymore. This is actually my computer's mic, so it's going to be capturing a lot more because, the mic is not as direct as the headphone input. So today we're going to be talking about a game that I've been actually waiting a long time for. It has a pretty late port over to the United States of America and other various parts that are not Japan. Today we're going to be talking about Tales of Xillia or Tales of Xillia or however many different pronunciations there are. I've heard a couple, so I'm not sure what is the correct, true, and proper one. Today we're going to be talking about Tales of Xillia, and for those of you who don't know what this game is the latest. Well, it's not the latest for America, but well, actually, it is the latest for America, but it's not the latest in the series. It's the latest release outside of Japan for the Tales franchise, and for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a long-running. I think this is their 15-year anniversary. It's a long-running series of JRPGs, or Japanese role-playing games, for various consoles. It's been going on since the PlayStation, and then, it's evolved over a bunch of different consoles. The GameCube had one, the Wii had one, PlayStation 2 had a couple, etc., etc. And Tales of Xillia is the first one to come and be, released in America in about 2 years, okay? And since 2011, when Tales of Grace's F was, I believe, released in America. So, Tales of Xillia was just released in 2013, August 6th, and it's been out in Japan for 2 years already, pretty much, or around that amount of time. So, what is Tales of Xillia? Tales of Xillia, just giving some background on the story, involves two different worlds, and one of which is inhabited by spirits and is being threatened by a group of people who use forbidden devices known as spyrexes, which kill nearby spirits upon being used. And one mysterious entity, whose name is Mila, sets upon it, being that she is a mystical spirit known as the Maxwell, who is the lord of all spirits. She takes it upon herself in order to protect the spirits and ensure their survival by setting out to destroy all these different spyrexes that kill off the spirits. And along the way, she's joined by a medical student called Jude, who they literally just bump into each other by pure coincidence. And as the story progresses, they team up. They meet a whole bunch of other people who share their cause and share their goal. And again, like most Tales games, a lot of these characters, they're very interesting. They're, they kind of fit into some of the stereotypes set by the series, but again, they're very unique, and I think that, especially in this game, the voice acting for a lot of them is really well done. And they were designed pretty much by series mainstay, but by the series mainstay artist. I know I read something about this, but Mila was developed and designed by someone else. I forget if it was a cross collaboration or what exactly the deal with that was, but pretty much for the most part, I think that the characters are very interesting, and so is the story. Okay, the story, while I don't think it lives up to the same caliber as, like, say, Vesperia or Symphonia in my mind, you gotta remember that a Tales game always has really good story. So definitely, within a few, maybe I'd like to say within an hour or so of playing, I was definitely engaged with the story. I was definitely very well gripped by it, and I was really interested, and I was not up until the end of the game, I was always, wondering what was going to happen next. It was very interesting. Once again, Tales reuses skits. And for those of you who don't know what skits are basically like miniature cutscenes that you can opt to watch. And a lot of times they give you hints as what to do, for side missions, or they elaborate on the past of some characters, or some of them are comedic, others are serious. And it's a nice way to have plot exposition, but it's optional, it's not drawn out, and it can sometimes give a recap. It can give you a really good insight into the characters and the story and the situation they're in. And I always enjoy listening to skits and watching them. You got to remember, skits weren't always voiced in American releases of Tales games. I know Symphonia, for when it was released for the GameCube, was not voiced. So it was kind of weird because, skits would just... characters would be talking, but they would be talking way faster than anyone could possibly read the skit. And so it was just like very awkward, sitting down, oh, here comes a skit. And you can't actually watch it and get engaged with it because, in the developers' minds, I'm guessing they're saying, okay, we don't want the skits to be too long, but, because there's no one actually voicing out these skits and officially reading them, they don't know how quickly people are going to be able to read the dialogue. So thankfully, that's a problem that was remedied in later English releases. And I know Tales of Vesperia didn't have that problem, Graces didn't have that problem, and neither does Xillia, because, people are actually voicing it out. And I have to say, for a Tales game, Tales of Xillia has a lot of voice acting. And that's a good thing. Because, a lot of times when these JRPGs get imported, to America, where the fan base isn't as strong as maybe in Japan and other places, they omit a lot of voice acting, to save time, to save money, because, the fan base isn't that big. And I have to say, not only do they have a lot of voice acting in this game, which is very good. In fact, the cutscenes where they do not speak are basically delegated only to side missions, and even then, not so many. But a lot of times the dialogue auto-progresses, so it's like a real conversation between the characters. Although there are a couple of very weird pauses at some points, it's not that big of a deal. So story-wise, this game, I think, is really, really strong. You know what I mean? If you enjoy JRPG stories, and if you just enjoy a good story in general, and you like it with a story as a side on your RPG, I think that this game has a lot for it. Okay, it has a lot going for it. It's very good. Now, getting into the gameplay of this game. Okay, the gameplay of this game is actually, of course it's similar to other Tales games, but it's actually different in several aspects. Okay, so for those of you who don't know how Tales games, how most of the combat goes in a Tales game, it's different than most JRPGs. Combat in a Tales game is actually real time. So, for example, in most RPGs, like say Lost Odyssey or Final Fantasy, some of the older Final Fantasies, you would sit around, you would have infinite time to pick your action and pick what you're going to do, and then you would do it and watch the turn unfold, and then, the next turn would come around and you would decide your course of action. Or in like other RPGs where, it's real time to an extent, like Final Fantasy has become now. It's real time, so each character has to wait before they can move, and everyone else has a timer, and then they pick their actions, and then, they start performing their stuff. Tales games are pretty much completely real time, okay? As soon as you come into contact with an enemy on the overworld map, you're thrust into the battle map, and what happens is depending on who you're playing as, you have access to certain abilities and certain melee moves and whatnot, and your teammates, up to 3 other people for a total of 4 in your active party, their actions are dictated by the AI. You can customize them, their gear. Pretty much standard fare, but also with the Tales twist. And combat is predominantly, you pick an enemy you want to fight. You can swap between them at any time, by hitting a button that pauses the action, allows you to read up on their weaknesses, allows you to decide what the best course of action is. And what you do then is, basically the way you should go about thinking about it is that you are on a 2-dimensional plane with your enemy, and pushing left and right will move you closer and further away. Pushing up lets you jump. Pushing down, allows you to do different moves and stuff. So pretty much, Tales games have not changed in that aspect. So like, let's say you want to just standing there doing nothing as your basic move set, and you can combo that. If you push left or right while doing a moveset, that can be different. Pushing down is a different moveset. Pushing up can let you jump, or pushing up and then timing it with your with your hit button allows you to do different moves. So really, it's just experimenting with what really works best in that particular situation. You can miss. So for example, if an enemy's flying, you can swipe underneath it and miss, and other stuff applies like that. You have arts, which are either divided into two different categories: martial arts or spirit arts. And as the name suggests, spirit arts are more magic in a sense, and martial arts are more physical. So you have your physical characters, you have characters that know magic, based on who they are, and depending on how the story plays out, they have access to certain arts. So for example, some characters are healers, others deal damage using spirit arts, and some are just tanks and whatnot. And of the 6 characters, it's really easy actually to divide up your characters to do certain tasks and boss fights. And now with this game, there's actually a lot of new twists to the gameplay. Okay, there's actually a couple I can think of right off the top of my head. The first instance is that now, for the first time in a Tales game, you can actually, well, the first time that I've seen, but I'm pretty sure this might be a new time thing for all Tales games, you can actually swap your party members mid-battle, okay? So for example, let's say you go into a fight with party members 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5 and 6 are on the bench. In every other Tales game, those party members could not interact in the battle at all. They were just stuck there. You could not put them in and out. Your party was predetermined before the fight actually begins. Now, that's all changed. Now you can swap in and out pretty much at any time. Once they give you the tutorial for it, you can swap your party members, assuming you have more than 4, and I think that's good. I think that's a good addition. It's a good way to help keep your party versatile for a boss, so you don't know what's coming up. You can swap in, okay, this fight requires a lot of tanks and it requires a lot of healing. You can easily swap in the people you need without it being too big of a problem. So I think that's a good addition. Another addition is the ability of linking, okay? What linking is during a fight or during a battle, you and another AI, or 2 AIs, can perform linking. And basically what linking is when you link with someone, a line actually appears between you and that person, and it makes it, what happens is I'm just going to say it from the player's perspective, is whoever initiates that link can fight normally, but their link partner will actually try to flank around the enemy, will try to will help them recover from stun faster. And each character has an additional bonus ability that you get whenever you link with them. So for example, Jude, if you link with Jude, which you're not playing as Jude if you're linking with Jude, he has an ability called Restore in addition to all his other abilities. And what Restore is if you get knocked down by a powerful hit from an enemy, he'll jump over to you sometimes and actually pick you right back up and give you a little bit of healing. And Mila has an ability called Bind. I actually never saw it because I was playing as Mila whenever she was available, given that she was the main character in my story. So another person, Rowan is his name. He's more of a magic user. He has an ability called Autocast, or Auto Magic Guard, which is whenever an enemy uses a spell on his link partner or himself, he'll automatically use Magic Guard. And there's using Magic Guard normally, it's a trade-off between using a physical guard and using Magic Guard. You can't be doing both at once. So that's very helpful. Each partner has his or her own ability. Elise, another character who's more of a healer, she can actually, she has a stuffed doll that she uses to fight. And what she does with the stuffed doll is he runs over to enemies and he actually absorbs health and TP, which is the currency that you use for spells and martial arts, and he'll give it to you and or your link partner and whoever you're playing as. So each person has their own unique ability, and tying into that, each person also has their unique style of fighting. Okay, and I say this because in a lot of previous Tales games, especially in Symphonia, it kind of felt like a lot of the characters were almost palette swaps of each other. So like Kratos and Zelos were kind of the same class, just depending on the story, you would either have one or the other. And at one point you could actually have both, which was kind of funny. Presea and Lloyd kind of had similar fighting styles, although to be fair, they were different in some regards. That kind of was abandoned a while back. You know, I guess they decided it would be better to have more diverse characters. And now in Xillia, what happens is each character has a unique ability specific to that person. So, for example, Jude has an ability called Snap Pivot. And what it is because he's a martial artist, and, you know, he fights using knuckles and, you know, weapons that go on his fists. What he does is, if you input a certain sequence of buttons, which I believe is like pushing guard and then, or no, holding guard and then double tapping back, or it might just be double tapping back or something like that, you'll actually step behind the opponent, you'll teleport behind them. And as you all know, if you've played an RPG any time in the last like 20 years, if you're behind someone, it makes it easier to get critical hits. So that can be a good way to flank an opponent, or, you know, get behind an enemy that's about to launch a really powerful strike. Mila's ability is called Spirit Shifting because she is this mythical and mystical spirit called the Maxwell. She actually has dominion over pretty much a good portion of all known magic spells. And so her special ability is she can spirit shift certain arts into different forms. So what it is they take Mila, who would be the, you know, the predominant spellcaster, and they actually turn her into a character who can use her arts without having to actually cast them. So for example, if you want to cast Fireball, you know, like any other RPG, casting requires you to stand still and chant the spell before you can use it. Well, not only can Mila do that, okay, Mila can also run up to an enemy, and instead of holding the button to cast it, she can just tap it, or the player can just tap it, and then she'll immediately use a different version of Fireball called Flare Bomb. And pretty much every spell that Mila knows that's an art can be used in this manner. So, and each different spell that you have has different effects to it. So for example, 2 lightning spells, Bolt Strike and I forget the other one, Thunderblade. Each one, when spirit shifted, uses I forget, lightning, right? But the difference is lightning, when used from Thunderblade, arcs out and it goes in different directions, so it's more of a spread attack. And if you use it from Bolt Strike, I forget, I think it's just multiple hits. So it really depends on what art you use. And that, I think, definitely helps to diversify the characters. You know, if you feel like you can play as a certain character over another, then that definitely helps. But like most other RPGs, you know, pretty much because of story constraints, you're going to be playing as either Mila or Jude, you know, if something happens in the story. So it's best to, you know, get acclimated to their fighting style, so you're at least passable in that regard. The other thing being said is that this Tales game is actually the first Tales game where they have branching storylines. And what I mean by that is, one of the things that they were heavily talking about with this game is that you can actually choose 2 different characters at the start of the game and then experience the story from their narratives, okay? And those 2 characters are Jude and Mila. So for example, you know, stuff might happen in the story, like Mila and Jude might be separated, and, you know, let's say you picked Mila as your person to experience the story from, then you'll follow Mila's party, and Jude's party will be off doing something else, and, you know, then maybe later they reunite, and then you might get a refresher on what happened while you were not playing with Jude, okay? And while I have to say that it is an interesting concept, you gotta understand, pretty much what it does is it makes you want to play the game twice, which is good. You know, Tales of Xillia is definitely a game worth playing multiple times, you know, because there might be stuff on the second playthrough you didn't get to do on the first playthrough, and, you know, you're definitely going to want to play the other side of the story so you can experience it, and I think that that's good. You know, that's definitely something good, but it's kind of, you know, okay, well, here's a way we can make someone play both sides of the story. So that's something that was meh in my opinion. It was like, okay, yeah, well, it's cool, it's there, and if you like it, you like it. If not, you don't. Another thing that was kind of so-so in my opinion is something that's very particular in the game. It's that, well, first of all, there's still missable side missions, which I think is absolutely ridiculous at this point, but that's whatever. That's going to be in JRPGs forever. One thing that I do find really interesting, and what I don't actually particularly approve of too much, is that Mila, despite having, dominion over the 4 major elements, she only learns one earth-based spell and 1 water-based spell. Okay? And that to me is just, why would they do that? Okay? And here's what I can speculate is the reason. It's because they wanted to make another character who they were probably designing as a spellcaster. They wanted to keep him relevant because, as I said, Mila, she can spirit shift. She can, she knows a whole bunch of different spells, very powerful high-level spells, X, Y, and Z. And I guess they didn't want to say, okay, well, we also made a second mage character, but there's no point in having more than one mage character if, Mila can do all this and all that. And that, in my opinion, is just not how you should divvy up spellcasting, by making one character completely horrible at spellcasting, or, well, at one particular facet of spellcasting, especially when, the story is pointing her to be this being who has complete control over not only the 4 elements, but also the 4 summon spirits, the 4 major summon spirits. So, that to me was disappointing, especially because I play as Mila. So I'm like, well, here's a fight where the boss is weak to water. Well, guess what? It kind of sucks that my only water spell is the basic level 1 water spell. You know what I mean? And Rowan, I'm going to say this about Rowan, as much as I love him as a character, and I think he was very beneficial to the story, Rowan has atrocious health points. His HP is probably the lowest of anyone in the party. And that to me is just, well, you make this guy good in niche scenarios, and, his fighting style, while it is helpful when you link with him, because he is a very helpful partner, and he does have some pretty good arts you can combine with Mila over. The problem with him is that he dies very quickly. He only has about, 2,000, by the time I was beating the game, he only had, 2,000 HP, and, I'm sitting here like, wow, my tanks have close to $4,000 or $5,000 or whatever. Or I think at one point we were getting close to $6,000 or something. I'm forgetting because it's been a week since I beat the game. And I'm sitting here with $3,000, and I'm looking at Rowan, and I'm like, this guy Rowan has no health, and he's just getting beaten up. He's just dying. It's just well. What are the benefits to this character besides the fact that he knows spells that Mila should know, but the only reason she doesn't is because you made it so that she's, you try to keep Rowan relevant in that regard. And that to me is not how you should divvy up characters, but that's just my opinion. The one thing that I did like about this game, and this is one of the bragging points of this game, is that the game actually takes place from, more of a traditional third-person view, rather than, Tales games, what they usually do in Tales games, which is they have the view from a specific point in the sky, and your character is basically running around town with a fixed camera that's following him at certain positions. Rather than do that, what they are actually doing in this game is everything takes place from behind your person, so you can rotate the camera, you can fix it, and I think that's pretty cool. I think that one of the big things they bragged about is that all these environments, they're realistically scaled to your character. So it's not like, oh, you're in a town that only has 5 houses and whatnot, and, the house is almost as big as, well, your person is, almost as big as the house or whatever, thing they were doing. They're actually saying, it helps with the immersion, you know what I mean? You actually get the feeling like this is actually, feasible, and you can actually kind of believe that the characters are in a town, that's not oh, it's easier for the developers, or it's easier just to program this in. It actually feels wow, this is happening, from an anime sense, the houses are realistically sized. That being said, this game actually kind of does lack a traditional overworld. Areas flow into one another, so it kind of, in that sense, the exploration feeling kind of gets lost because there's no overworld. And I said the same thing about Grace's, although Grace's had a very, very weird overworld. Grace's overworld was pretty much, all these areas intersect, and there's passageways that connect them. Well, it's kind of the same thing here. All these places intersect, and you can teleport between all of them. And what do you want me to say? It feels very weird at some points, not to explore this stuff. And there's no real hidden areas, okay? Because everything has to be, connected on the map, and, there's no way you can, accidentally stumble upon some place or something like that, and I just think that that was kind of weird. It's kind of awkward, and I kind of miss overworlds. Okay, let's put it like that. You know, having played Vesperia and having played Symphonia, I kind of miss that feeling of wandering around, you know, for a little bit, attacking enemies. While we're talking about, you know, the housing and whatnot, I have to say that the graphics and the soundtrack for this game are superb. They could not in any way have been better, I don't think. Maybe, you know, well, obviously there's always room for improvement, but I think that for what they were going for, they nailed it right on the head, okay? The music is just astounding. It's just really, really good. It's really mystical. It's very beautiful. And I bought the collector's edition. I'll tell you, I don't regret spending $100 on Tales of Xillia. It was worth it, okay? The collector's edition, you know, it came with the CD, it came with the art book, and, you know, all that stuff. That's really good. I have to say, I knew when I said to myself, okay, there's a big Tales game coming out, you know, it'll be worth it for me to buy the collector's edition because I liked Symphonia and I liked Graces and I liked Vesperia. You know, it's worth it because I enjoy these games a lot and I enjoy JRPGs a lot. So the graphical style, you know, the anime cutscenes like usual are in there. And they look just as beautiful as ever. You have a nice wide array of characters, you know, both weird and crazy and kooky and whatnot. You have a soundtrack that really helps with the mood, which is really what I like about Tales games, because the soundtrack always seems on par and on top of its game. And really, there's just nothing bad I can say about it. You know, I know I kind of get the feeling what they went for, and I think they nailed it. The only things that I can really say about this game are that the end of the game, you know, the last, like, act, if you want to call it, or the last, like, part of the game, kind of feels shorter than, you know, what most Tales games would do. So, for example, without spoiling too much, at one point in the game, you come to this new area after a very, very big plot twist, and then you almost spend, like, no time there. You know what I mean? Like, there's only a couple of places. It's not nearly as big as the mainland. And, you know, then again, this probably comes back to the fact that, hey, there's no real overworld. You know, all these areas are linked on the map. And, unfortunately, you know, it feels like they're being they're shortchanging a lot of this stuff is what I have to say. And I just didn't feel that well at home with it. You know what I mean? And I just said to myself, wow, you know, you spend, like, no time here, you know, before rushing back to the end of the game. And, well, by no time, I mean only, you know, a couple of hours, maybe like 5 to 10 hours. But, like, still, that's you know, a small chunk of this game. This game was 144 parts. So that's, like, what, about a day or so many hours. And I just felt like they could have extended it, you know what I mean? They could have been a bit more than what it ultimately ended up being. So there's a lot to say about this game. A lot of good stuff, a lot of stuff I liked, you know, some stuff that maybe, you know, I didn't like so much. But ultimately, what would I give Tales of Xillia, or Tales of Xillia, or, you know, all the different names for it? I would give Tales of Xillia, and dramatic pause for no reason, I would give Tales of Xillia a 94 out of 100, because I really enjoyed this game. This game, you know, first off, we had Pikmin 3, so that just put me in a good mood right away, because I waited 9 years for that game. Then I had this game, you know, with its really great presentation and really great overall gameplay, and it really blew me away. And I have to say, Namco Bandai has done it again. You know, they never disappoint me with a Tales game. And, you know, like, as I actually said at one point, Namco Bandai really doesn't disappoint me when it comes to games. So there's a lot to be done in this game. You know, there's still a lot of side quests I haven't touched. Maybe I'll go back to those, either on camera or off. And there's a lot of stuff that's good for this game, and I enjoyed it. So I think a 94 encompasses the stuff I do like, the stuff I didn't like. You know, the rushed sort of ending and the non-linearity. Actually, no, the linearity of the game, because it feels a lot of times, you know, like you're kind of forced to go to certain areas. You can't really go back to older areas and explore them. Because, you know, even though you can fast travel from the world map and it's very quick, and, you know, stuff like that, but a lot of times they lock it so you can't because of storyline implications. And I just wish, you know, you had a little bit more freedom to explore. But again, you know, the freedom to explore kind of implies that I wish there was an overworld where I could, you know, run around and freely explore. But definitely a game that if you're a JRPG fan, you know, this is pretty much either you're a Tales fan and you pretty much know you're going to get this game because you like Tales, and they don't release Tales but every couple of years. And it's definitely an experience that you should check out. Or, if this is perhaps one of your first JRPGs, or not one of your first JRPGs, or you haven't played a Tales game, this is a great place to start. It's definitely, pretty easy for people to jump into. Or, for those guys, I would say that this game is a must-buy. It's a must-have. It's a PlayStation 3 exclusive, though, so sorry about that. But what I will say is that if you're not into JRPGs, if you're not into Japanese culture, if you're not into anime, if you're not into that, then this game probably will have very little value for you. And I hate to say it, but that's the kind of thing I would say. You need to, these kind of niche games where they only satisfy certain people looking for certain things. Like, I would not suggest you sit down or you pay $60 for this game if you're not into it. So, all in all, that's a lot said for Tales of Xillia. There's definitely a lot of good stuff for this game. And one thing that I will say is, this game actually does have a sequel. Again, it's already been released in Japan. It was released a year after the original came out. And for us, thankfully, Namco Bandai, they were unsure whether or not they would want to publish Tales of Xillia 2, internationally. And pretty much before the game was even released, they said, yeah, we're going to go ahead and publish the game internationally. So I'm definitely very excited for that. That's great, that Tales of Xillia 2's sequel is going to come to North America. Because if you remember, I'm still kind of fuming over Tales of Vesperia not being localized, which was unfortunate. Well, Tales of Vesperia PS3 was not localized, even though they claimed they were, and some stuff was happening that was going to be, and really ultimately it just kind of fell from memory, and I was kind of disappointed because they added a lot to that game, as an enhanced port, and I wanted to see what they did with it. So, overall, I'm just glad Tales of Xillia 2 is coming out next year, so we're going to have 2 great years of back-to-back Tales. And yeah, this game was a pleasure to play, very enjoyable, and I hope you guys check it out, because it's definitely worth checking out if you're into JRPGs. So, that's all I have to say about Tales of Xillia. I'm SpraynPray1000. I hope you guys enjoyed this nice verdict. And I'll see you guys soon. So take care. Oh! Did he just kill himself? Did he really just kill himself?